Sora to Guam when she refused to reveal the whereabouts of Andres Bonifacio to them. And as Filipinos would know, Andres Bonifacio is one of our revolutionary leaders. The devastation wrought by the Second World War also brought about the second infusion of Filipino blood into the Guam population. It was Filipino labor that was called in by the US government to help in rehabilitating Guam. When the Filipinos came over, they realized that even after their work here, they would have a future if they stay on in the island. So stay they did until they established and distinguished themselves, primarily in the private sector. After staying here for just 6 months, I now realize that the names of Mark Pangilinan, Emilio Uy, Alfred Israel, and Eli del Carmen are names of just some of the prominent Filipinos on the island. These are just some of the names of Filipino success stories on Guam who came to help rebuild Guam at the end of the Second World War and eventually made names for themselves. It would therefore be difficult to separate the Filipino from the non-Filipino in Guam. And I agree with Dr. Somera that the new generation of students should have opportunities like this lecture series to understand various aspects of Philippine studies and also to be able to put things in better perspective. In recent years, the people of Guam, including the Filipino community, have been closely following the developments with regard to the military buildup, which is expected to transpire over the next 3 to 4 years. The Marine relocation itself will have far-reaching implications and consequences on the lives of the people on island, and that's why I consider it timely that the members of the Academy and the people who have come this evening avail themselves of this opportunity to listen to a well-respected authority on paradigm shifts and such other political academic discussion. I end with the hope that we all go home with a more enlightened perspective on the strategic policy of the United States in the Asia-Pacific region. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Consul General. Our lecturer this evening has a 15-page CV, but I'm not going to read it. I'm sure you would be happy to hear that. There's a brief bio in the program that was distributed before the program tonight. The most distinctive, I guess, parts of her CV is the fact that she has been a professor in political science at the University of the Philippines for a number of years, and she is just announcing her retirement in a few years. But she has also held a lot of other distinguished positions. She was the president of the National Defense College from 1998 to 2001. She was the secretary of the graduate school at the University of the Philippines and has served as consultant on constitutional reforms, anti-corruption, security and defense issues to the Philippine Senate and the Philippine House of Representatives for many, many years. She has numerous scholarships and honors to her name, notable among which is the Elpidio Quirino Professorial Chair on International Relations, the Maximo Calao Professorial Chair on Peace and Environment. She was a Fulbright grantee at Cornell University in New York and UCLA at different points in her career, and was a special scholar at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. She has written 10 books on political science and various range of topics, some of which are also listed in your program tonight. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm deeply honored to introduce to you our speaker for the inaugural lecture for the Philippine Studies Lecture Series here at the University, Dr. Clarita R. Carlos.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Consul Palala. I know I've been teaching for 43 years and I see that my students are now consul generals and ambassadors. And I always pass on the glory of my students. I'm sorry to disappoint you for changing the title of my presentation. Actually, my paper underwent several reincarnations over the past several weeks that I was conceptualizing what it should look like. For a while, I thought I would just focus on American foreign policy in the Asia-Pacific region. And then I thought that I'd like to, extend it further, and I'd like to raise questions which are rarely asked, which, other political scientists are not asking. And so I thought of looking at it from a macro point of view, not just to think of U.S. foreign policy in the Asia-Pacific region, but U.S. foreign policy towards the rest of the world. And so I have retitled my paper as a question mark, really: do we have a new era, or are we confronting a new era of international politics with the assumption of a new president of the United States? And should we rethink our assumptions about interstate relations? And are we going to do the same things, considering that we are confronted with new security and defense challenges? This presentation, therefore, will be an attempt to revisit the games nations play in the international arena. It will attempt to clarify the assumptions in interstate relations. Oh, I forgot. What am I going to hit here? Start this. Excuse me, I'm such a stupid person so far as I could not get this in my flash because my grandchildren had not gone home, so I could not do anything. Excuse me. Okay, so I'll hit this. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, so I think there is a need to clarify our assumptions about interstate relations, which have long been buried in rhetoric, that have been set aside to respond to the needs of the moment, and that had been unquestioned for most part by a public otherwise involved in the daily acts of living and alienated to the rest of the acts of government that little touch their everyday lives. As we speak, okay. That's fine, huh? Okay. Thank you. I'm so sorry about that. As we speak, the G20 countries, composed of the 20 countries with the largest economies, have decided yet again to hold another summit in December to answer what question: what is to be done in Afghanistan? As the number of civilian fatalities in the counter-Al-Qaeda war in Afghanistan mounts, the leaders of the world continue to search for the elusive answer: how the conditions in this country can provide a better environment for the kind of world that the G20 countries would like it to be. Afghanistan to the outside world is simply a vast area of the world inhabited by tribes, many times occupied by hostile forces, alien forces, governed by rules so different from the known ways of the so-called civilized world, and whose future continues to be decided, defined, and contoured by outside forces like the NATO and the United States of America. As in the case of many such summits, the object of change, the Afghans themselves, will not participate in the crafting of their future. What representation they may have will come from the selected few in Afghanistan, whose views will merely echo and be aligned with the major discourse of the occupying forces, that is, that the tribes which cannot be cajoled to kowtow to Kabul will be decimated. Interestingly, just a week ago, the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States